Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 354 of Prof and Dev Play Games. My name is Larry, the professor at Prof Plays Games on Twitter, and over there is not the Dev. The Dev is tired from moving furniture around all weekend, finally finished up his basement and his guest bedroom, etc. So he is off for the night, taking a well-deserved break, so it is just me here with a short show. I thought about not doing the show and waiting for him next week and wanting to, to have the back and forth, talking to someone in the other chair that I've gotten used to. But boy, there's a piece of news that I wanted to talk about and wanted to spit out into the ether at least this weekend because I saw it and I just thought, what the fuck? But maybe it's because I don't play this game. Maybe I should. But I think because of Cyberpunk, what is it called? Edgerunners, that Netflix show that I'm just now starting to watch. The concurrent Steam player count for Cyberpunk 2077 hit 122,376 players, which is awesome. That's a big deal for a single player game. But the thing that stood out to me is that beats the all-time record for the concurrent players of Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which they hit in early 2020, right around when, The Witcher hit Netflix. And again, we are seeing a Netflix show give rise to higher numbers of a single-player game on Netflix. And I feel like it's, a couple of things. One is just the popularity of this type of environment or this type of it's not fantasy, right? It's science fiction, which I think probably has more of an interest base, although I think maybe Game of Thrones puts a lie to that. But I'm just so taken aback because of how terribly Cyberpunk 2077 has been received over the last 2 years, and it's slowly picking up steam, slowly starting to improve in terms of patches and things like that. But this, to blow out Witcher 3's concurrent player count is so interesting to me, and such a says two things to me. One, the amount of people who are coming to a game because of a tangential or adjacent piece of media. It's really interesting. I feel like more game development studios are probably going to pay attention to that. Maybe it happened with Cuphead, and I just don't know, because Cuphead had I believe it was a Netflix show that released. So it just tells me, put out an adjacent piece of media that's good. I mean, this is well received. I'm sure League of Legends had an increase because of Arcane. So it's got to be a good piece of tangential media. But number two, with Arcane, with Edgerunners, I just feel like animated features, maybe even anime specifically, but animated features lend themselves much better to video game adjacent content, video game retellings, video game side stories, related stories just come across seemingly much better in an animated medium where you can really recreate either kind of artistically or exactly sort of what's happening in the game. And I know The Witcher doesn't do this. The Witcher, has CG, of course, but it's not animated. But I think about the Castlevania shows, for example. I think of Arcane. I think of Cyberpunk now. I think of Edgerunners. There's just a rich ground for game development studios to kind of pass on their IP to a studio that knows what the hell they're doing in the animated space and create something that's just good, something that I don't know, pushes out the edges of the universe, pushes out the edges of the story in a way that gets people interested back in the game. Like, oh, Edgerunners was awesome. I want to check out what it was based off of. Cyberpunk 2077, sure, let's give it a crack. And now that it's mainly, not entirely, but mainly been patched up enough to run decently on current gen systems, but PC I think was never really a problem. It was just bare bones content, really. People jump in and give it a go. So there's just thinking about how much it takes to invest in, a 10-episode series like this is probably not insubstantial, but it's probably a fraction of the budget of the game itself. Like, I imagine if GTA did something like this. The GTA 6 budget is rumored to be something like $2 billion. So, a fraction of that would cover a GTA animated thingy on Netflix or some other streaming service. And those streaming services, I think, are, always thirsty for content. So it feels like a win-win for everybody. Win-win, it's a win for the developers. It's a win for the audience. It's a win for the franchise. It's a win for the IP. If it's good, right? Like, think about Cowboy Bebop, where it was not received well. That didn't really do much for that IP. Kind of brought people back to the original and said, this is good. Like, leave this alone. But it just shows that if you can do something good, something different, especially if you have an IP like Cyberpunk 2077 or The Witcher, or Game of Thrones, frankly, where there's so many rich side stories to dig into. There's an unlimited amount of things that you can tell. I know, like, on the Game of Thrones side, we're doing the I can't fucking remember what the show is called. Maybe it's called Fire and Blood, which is what the book is called. There's, it's his Silmarillion, and I'm reading that book right now, and there's so many fucking stories in there, that there are stories that are even like hinted at, that the author then says, or the teller and the narrator then says, this is not a story that even touches the story we're telling in this book, so we won't even get into that. And there are just so many nodes, so many branches of the story that it doesn't even go into. Any one of those one-sentence nodes could be an entire fucking show, could be an entire novel, could be an entire series. So there's just so much, in this world where it's just content, there's so much to plumb. And if you do it well, if you make it good, people will come, people will talk about it. People are talking nonstop in my feeds about Edgerunners, about Cyberpunk 2077 right now. And that's cool. Like, if it stays in the zeitgeist, people are going to, when I hear it like 10 times, finally I'm like, all right, fuck, I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a shot. And believe it or not, related to those fucking numbers, I'm like, I should probably load up Cyberpunk 2077 now that it's got all those patches, because I loaded up for like an hour and refunded it because it wasn't what I was feeling at the time, and the reviews weren't good enough for me to substantiate that $60 purchase, but I ended up picking it up later for $30 when it was on sale, and I'm kind of feeling the itch to play it. And I know when I watch Edgerunners, I'm going to be like, yeah, I want to explore this world more. I want to be in this world a little bit more. I want to inhabit the world a little more. So I'll probably jump in and do a little bit of Cyberpunk 2077 then, although I don't have a ton of time to be playing games, unfortunately, right now. That might be one that I pop into. So I just wanted to come up and drop a short little podcast and talk about that piece of news, because whenever Witcher 3 is in the news, I like to talk about it. I get excited. Speaking of Witcher 3, they confirmed that the season 3 is next summer instead of wintertime. It'll be next summer. But we've got the Witcher spinoff. I believe it's called Blood Origin. We have the Witcher spinoff Blood Origin coming out this Christmas. I think it is actually Christmas Day, December 25th. So I'm looking forward to that. I think Michelle Yeoh is in it. So I'm always here for more Witcher media. So looking very forward to that. In other news, what I've been playing, I have been playing Picross, believe it or not. Picked up my Switch and fumbled around until I found something that was interesting to me that night, and I just stumbled across Picross again and got into the puzzles. Tickles your brain in a fun sort of way. Ran through a couple puzzles, and that was fun. And then with my daughter in the mornings, we were kind of flirting with the idea of playing some different kinds of games, and we are back to Wind Waker. We restarted Wind Waker, and we are going through it for the third time. But my daughter is interesting. It's probably the same with all kids, but she's obsessed with things, and she'll want to watch the thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But each iteration, there's less and less, I wouldn't say interest, but like attention. So like the first, 5, 6, 7 times, she'll watch it totally attentively. And then as you get past that, she'll start doing other things while she's watching. Spending a little more time paying attention to something else while that thing is on. And I'll ask, you want to stop this? Do you want to move on to something else? No, I'm really into this. But her body's saying something else. So we'll see if we make it all the way through Wind Waker this time. I sort of doubt it, considering we literally just finished it, but she she said she loves it. It's her favorite game of all time. So we'll probably put a little more time into it. For me, on the side, when I get a little bit of time, I'm still playing Elden Ring. I've just got through to the lift that brings you to the mountaintop of the giants. And as I was getting right to the lift, as you know, if you played that game, there's a big-ass boss there. And I played it a couple times, and you whittle a little more health down each time and kind of figure it out. Roll forward and be a little aggressive and not too aggressive, and pull back when you can, and use the environment to shield yourself from some of the main attacks. I should probably pull out my shield. In fact, I'm still dual wielding and forget that I can pull out my shield. But I pulled up my Mimic, and that was helpful. It helped me whittle the boss down to half health, and at half health, the boss just wiped my Mimic. So I had probably like 6 health pots left, and the what the fuck is that called? The physic of something, the thing where you mix your own health potion, basically. So I had those, and after my Mimic died, I basically got to the very last drip of health. Had used every potion, had used the Physic of Wonder or whatever the fuck it's called, and I had nothing else left. And it was probably 2 or 3 hits, and he came toward me. I rolled toward him and just came up slashing and just got him at the last second before he got me. And it was just another one of those thrilling moments in Elden Ring where you're just so close to death, and you stand up and take one final swing and do it. And man, boy, is it fun. So I'm playing that a little bit, and then today I'm trying to make an effort to play something different every week, something that I've picked up. And this weekend, my friend and colleague Bill texted me. What up, Bill? Texted me about Gloomhaven. It was free on Epic, so I had heard about that. It was a board game, so I knew I wanted to get it. And then I had 2 other friends text me telling me that Gloomhaven was on Epic for free. I was like, all right, everyone's blown up my phone about this game. I've got to download it. So I claimed it to my account, and I downloaded and played it a little bit today. Only about 40 minutes in the free time that I had between work and hanging out with my daughter when she got up from quiet time. And man, it's great. The idea, if you played the board game, and I'm going to probably explain this poorly, but you kind of choose your characters, and you've got this map to explore, and there are different events that happen, different encounters on the map as you're moving from point A to point B. It's like an RPG. It's simulating this sort of card management, deck management, it might be mini figurines, I'm not sure, in a dungeon. So you've got your abilities, and you have to burn them if you get hurt, or sacrifice some discarded cards. There's a lot of resource management in terms of the cards as you're moving through the dungeon, and you're choosing these optional objectives for your mercenaries that you've picked up, which are your main characters. And once they hit one of their optional goals in the game, they're gone. They leave, and you don't see them again apparently, but you unlock new classes for new mercenaries. So there's a lot of replayability in terms of going through the scenarios, playing with different classes. Because the way the battles work out, it's not really just like hack and slash, brute force your way through. You've really got to think about how your abilities match with the other characters in your party, but also with the enemies, and just like the design of the dungeon. Like this one, I run into this cathedral or something outside of town, and there's 3 bandits there that I've got to defeat. So I just burn through everything to take them all down, and then I open the door behind them, which I thought was like a treasure chest or something like that, and there's like 3 more bandits that are like stronger than the first ones. So I basically burned through all my resources in this just very tutorial encounter, to then get wiped by the 3 bandits that were in the room behind them that I didn't know were there. So I thought, okay, I've got to redo this encounter from the beginning, being more mindful of my resources, knowing that there are more people behind them. And then there were 2 doors to the left and right in that room, and I thought there's probably more people behind those doors. So it felt really really fucking challenging, and maybe impossible to get through the entire encounter. There must be some sort of mechanic after you die that allows you to come back in some way. I'm not sure, because once I wiped, I had to go, so I turned it off. But I enjoyed my time with it because I'm looking for games that sort of simulate the D&D experience, the tabletop gaming experience at home, by myself, basically. Although I have joined a D&D group on Tuesday nights, playing D&D regularly for the first time in my life, and it's felt always so inaccessible to me. Listening to Critical Role and stuff is awesome, but there's so many abilities, there's so many things to the math, the modifiers, everything to do manually. But D&D Beyond really makes that pretty easy. And I'm using pre-built characters from a friend, which is awesome because I'm joining their campaigns kind of midstream, and just the battle and the role playing. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm kind of I don't know what the word is. Really fiending, I guess I'll say, fiending for those kind of experiences, those storytelling experiences where you're kind of experiencing a fantasy setting and having agency over the story. It's just my jam. I wish I'd have gotten into this type of game earlier in my life, D&D specifically, because it sure is a lot of fun. But I'm enjoying, emulating that with different video games, of course. I think Witcher 3, I know I keep coming back to that. And I really need that, once that drops this year, once it drops with the 4K update, yada yada, next gen update, I'm going to play that again, because I want to know 7 years on, because I played it in the summer of 2015. 7 years on, do I still think it's the best game in the history of games, or was it so amazing because it was the first time that I played a game that had that kind of agency in a world, a fantasy world that I really enjoyed? So I'll find out. So that's all I've been playing. Had a really good week with some gaming and gaming news to enjoy. But I'm in the grind of work and there's a lot of stuff to do, so I fit in what I can here and there. Looking forward to talking to the dev next week, and looking forward to seeing those Cyberpunk 2077 numbers climb this week, and just thinking, what the fuck is happening? Good for them. Good for them. Everyone loves a redemption story, so we'll see if it keeps going. All right, folks, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. This is episode 354 of Prof and Dev Play Games. If you like us, please rate us on your podcast service of choice, and we will see you next week. Until then, hope you have a great week.